Everyone, this is the founder of Shepherd Residential Care, and I am here today with a very special guest. I am on here today with Edwin Kelly. He is the founder and owner of Specialized IRA Services, and I had the privilege this past week of being able to hear him share the platform in front of between 150 and 200 people. He was able to teach about IRA services, and believe me, guys, I have seen a lot of IRA people, and Edwin gets it. So we've got a very awesome opportunity today to be able to hear what he has going on. And without further intro, I want to introduce Edwin. He's full of info and knowledge about IRA services and how to be able to use those effectively towards growing your retirement account. So, Edwin, thank you for being here today.
Brandon, it's great to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a little while. Like you said, we met at an event, and that went very well. When we have the opportunity to teach people, like we're doing here today, about self-directing and getting control of the retirement account, the fact that there are alternatives to mutual funds in the stock market, it's just amazing to me how many people get it like that, and that they're able to shift and move in a very new, different direction, one that leads them to a place of financial security and prosperity versus a place where most people are at right now in the stock market, which is a place of uncertainty and unpredictability.
Sure. Well, so from the top here, what is a self-directed IRA, and how is that going to be different from a traditional IRA?
Great question. So the IRAs fall into two categories, and these are my categories, so this is how I talk about it. But one is a plain vanilla IRA,
okay,
and the other is a self-directed IRA. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
Most people have, and when I say most people, 97% or more of people have a plain vanilla IRA. And so what is a plain vanilla IRA? Well, it's an IRA or retirement account that you get at your bank or brokerage. And what they do is they limit you or restrict you the IRA owner, you the client, to investing in things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and CDs. And most of these things, are tied to the stock market. And so if the stock market goes up, you can be up, and when it goes down, your portfolio goes down.
Sure.
That's what I call a plain vanilla IRA.
Okay.
Now, by contrast, what is a self-directed IRA? A self-directed IRA, and a truly self-directed IRA, as we call it, is one that allows you to invest in anything that the government would allow us to invest in. So can you invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and CDs? Absolutely. But that's not why most people are coming to us. The reason why most people are opening accounts and opening up these specialized self-directed IRAs is because what they want to do is they want to diversify some or all of their money away from the stock market into other things, like real estate, private stock, private placements, things of that nature. And you need a truly self-directed IRA to be able to do that. Now, Brandon, if I can just give people a really useful tip here at this point. I've talked to many people, and they say, you know what, Edwin, I already have a self-directed IRA.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, you do? Well, where's your IRA at? And they give me the name of some big brokerage firm or a bank. And I said, okay. And I understand why they say that, because if you call and ask your bank or your broker and say, hey, I want a self-directed IRA, they're going to tell you that's exactly what you've got. You can make investment decisions in that account. And what they mean is you can make investment decisions as so long as they can charge you a fee or a commission. So you're going to be limited or restricted to things like mutual funds and stocks, like we just talked about. If you instead ask a different question, and that question is this: hey, I found and I use this specific question because it's so specific, it will give you the right answer in terms of whether or not you really have a self-directed IRA. So what I tell people to ask their IRA provider is, hey, I found a property, it's in foreclosure at the end of my street. I want my IRA to purchase it. I'm going to have the property rehabbed with my IRA money, and then I'm going to have a tenant move in there and rent it out and send the rental checks back to my IRA. Can I do that with you? That's when you're going to find out if you have a real self-directed IRA or not, because the answer from your bank or broker is going to be, no, you can't do that, or no, you can't do that here. And
Right.
so that's how you know whether or not you really truly have a self-directed IRA.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you talked about when you were up on stage is you gave some stats about the total figures of dollars that are in retirement accounts, and those are just astounding facts. Could you share with people what type of dollars are out there that are either that they aren't keeping up with inflation or they aren't properly growing for them? Um, could you tell us about that? Wasn't it like
Yeah.
$20 trillion?
Yeah, so the size accounts that people are holding assets in,
Mm-hmm.
retirement assets specifically, the size of the retirement plan industry, this includes 401ks, annuities, and IRAs,
Mm-hmm.
is $20 trillion as of the end of last quarter. $20 trillion. And of that $20 trillion, around 7 trillion, 7.5 trillion sits in IRAs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I said most of that money is tied up in mutual funds and the stock market for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So self-directing represents a small portion of that, but in fact, let me give you a little bit of stats on that. So right now today, as best as we can estimate it, there's about 50, kind of a range, 50 billion to 100 billion in self-directed retirement account assets. Okay, very small number compared to the $20 trillion number. Here's what I believe is going to happen, because that number, as small as it is compared to the 20 trillion, has been growing by leaps and bounds over the last 5 years. And so, and even over the last 10 to 15 years. It's just that people haven't ever heard about this before. So when people hear about it and they find out that they have options and alternatives, then people embrace self-directed retirement account strategies very, very quickly. And so my belief is that over the next decade to 2 decades, we're going to see that grow from 100 billion to $1 trillion in self-directed retirement accounts. That's where I believe the market is heading right now.
That's
And
incredible.
that would still represent a small percentage of the overall retirement pie, right? So I think it's a very realistic number, but based on the trends and everything that I've seen, that's where we're headed.
So just a quick question. How many zeros are in $1 trillion?
I'd have to write it down and count it.
Like
I haven't done that. I just spell it out. I put 20 and then I write the word trillion.
trillion.
That's how I talk about it. Because if I put all the zeros, people will be like, what number is that?
So that is just incredible. So what are some of the benefits of a self-directed IRA versus some of the more traditional avenues out there? In your presentation, I'm going over the presentation notes, which I took about 1.5 pages just on you talking, was that there's quite a bit of benefits tax-free, and I think there's only a couple restrictions or requirements. Could you talk on that compared to the traditional IRAs?
Yeah, so what most people have, so one of the reasons, why are we even talking about retirement account money? Well, the reason why is because IRAs, and any retirement account for that matter, but IRAs, and by the way, Brandon, just so everybody knows, I typically use the word IRA to generally apply to all retirement accounts. Now, there are different retirement accounts, but just for the sake of our discussion today, I'll probably go back and forth between IRAs and retirement accounts. I'm using those terms the same way to represent the category of retirement accounts, and I'll specify different ones at times probably here as we go. But
Okay.
One of the reasons why we're talking about retirement accounts is because they offer incredible tax benefits that every single American can take full advantage of. In fact, retirement accounts, and one of the reasons why they're so widely adopted, and one of the reasons why there's $20 trillion in assets, is because they're easy to set up, they're easy to use, and they provide incredible tax benefits as well as asset protection benefits. And so there's just a lot of benefits that we get by using these accounts that the government has written into law.
Wow.
So your question was around, well, what are some of the tax benefits and what's the difference between a couple of the accounts? Well, the way that these were created, there's basically two different tax benefits when it comes to these accounts. So the first is a traditional IRA, and that's what most people have.
Right.
And a traditional IRA is one where you take, and by the way, you can put money in the accounts different ways. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that. But for sake of starting out, if you start at zero, you're setting up your very first retirement account, you never had one before, you're going to open that account and you're going to make a contribution.
Okay.
And when you make that contribution to a traditional IRA, which is the first type of IRA there is, in fact, that was introduced back in '74, so they've been around for a long time. We're talking about 40 plus years at this point that IRAs have been around, specifically the traditional IRA. You put that contribution in, and you get to deduct that contribution from your taxable income. So if you assume that you're in a 30% tax bracket, as an example, and you made a $5,000 contribution to a traditional IRA, you immediately take $1,500 out of the government's pocket and put it in your IRA pocket.
Sure.
Because that's the tax deduction that you get. So you immediately lower the amount of money you're giving to the government this year when you contribute to a traditional IRA.
Gotcha.
The second benefit is you invest that money and you grow it. And at the end of this year, when your account grows, you're not going to have a tax bill. You're not going to get a 1099. Why? Because that account is tax protected. So all your earnings, all your income, all your profits, you get to keep inside of your IRA. By keeping those profits and income and earnings, instead of paying taxes on them, what that does is it has the profound effect of exponentially growing your retirement account faster and larger than you could if you were paying taxes as you went. On a traditional IRA, when you turn the magic age to 59 and a half, if you want to wait that long to take the distributions, at that point you take the money out of that account, or as you choose, and you pay taxes at that time. So that's a traditional IRA. The second type of IRA that's out there is something called a Roth IRA, and we refer to that as a tax-free account. Why do we call it a tax-free account? Well, there's similarities with the traditional, and there's some differences from the traditional. So the first similarity is the contribution limit. What you can put in every year changes year by year, so one of the best ways to find out what the current contribution limit is just to call our office, and we can go over that with you. But you put the same dollar amount in that Roth IRA, right, that contribution. Now, the first difference is that we do not take a tax deduction. You've already paid taxes on this money. We're not going to ask the government for a tax deduction. Instead, we're going to put that money in a Roth IRA. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, the reason why we do that is when we put the money in that account, again, we invest it, we grow it this year. There's no capital gains tax. There's no income tax, right? That account grows tax protected. So just like with the traditional, that account, your money will grow faster, exponentially faster and larger than by paying taxes as you go.
Wow.
Now, the magic on the Roth comes in at the back end because we didn't take a deduction on the front end, right? We got tax benefits as we grew our account, but the huge tax benefit is when we take money out of that account, because as long as you meet two requirements, one is that you're 59 and a half, the second is that you have that account open and established for 5 years. So 59 and a half, 5 years account open, every dollar you take out of that account comes out 100% tax-free.
Wow.
No income tax, no capital gains tax, no tax at all. So this is the only legal way that I know personally to get completely out from under the U.S. income tax system. That's the power of the Roth IRA. By the way, both of those accounts can be self-directed.
Wow. Wow. Well, it is. So, could you take a step back and kind of walk us through kind of how the IRAs came into place? Back in the day, they used to have pensions, and that's kind of almost to be like a thing of the past. These companies today are offering these IRAs as a form to kind of take care of them when they're done kind of work. And I mean, could you give everyone that is going to be listening a little kind of history of how that was able to evolve and then how that they can take advantage of that going forward. Because it didn't you say too that 93% of the country have not properly set their plans up for retirement, and what was it, like 7% of people have properly planned for that? Is that pretty correct?
Yeah, so let's talk about the history and kind of jump into what you were pointing out there, because that's a really important point. So if you go back in time, right, and it depends how far we want to go back, but if we go back to the U.S., and this will be your 60-second history lesson in retirement investing and retirement accounts. If you go back to when we were an agricultural society in the United States, what happened? When you got older, you lived at home, right, and you had the kids and the grandkids who helped out the grandparents, and that's how people took care of themselves and survived in retirement. Then we became an industrial society. And all of a sudden, when people couldn't work anymore, they became destitute. And that's when the Social Security Administration and the Social Security program was enacted. But the original concept of that program was never to be someone's complete and full retirement. It was designed to subsidize their retirement and help them out. And so one of the things that companies did was they created something called pensions, and they used that as a way to, quote, benefit employees and keep, attract, and retain good employees.
Sure.
The problem with the pensions, is that those are referred to as something called a defined benefit plan. And how does that work? Well, that's really beneficial, by the way, for the employee. It's not as beneficial for the employer, because they're the ones taking on all the risk. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, when in a defined benefit type of system or plan, it's usually defined as, the benefit is defined as, hey, if you work for us for 20 or 30 years, however that's determined, we're going to give you the 70% of the average of your last 3 years of service with us. And we'll give you that paycheck for the rest of your life. That's basically a defined benefit plan. They're defining what you're going to get on the back end. The problem was this. How did those pensions fund all those payments? Well, they invested in things like the stock market. And we all know what happened with the stock market. So guess what? When people began to retire and they had to make these obligations, the money wasn't there because the market didn't provide what they thought it was going to do.
Sure.
So what happened was, back in the early 70s, there was some new legislation passed. One of the most significant acts that was passed was ERISA, E-R-I-S-A. And what that did was it made a monumental shift in that risk equation, because what happened was the standard was shifted from defined benefit, where the employer takes on all the risk, to defined contribution, where the employee now takes on all the risk. So in other words, the way plans today, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, and TSPs are defined, is that they are defined as, here's what we're going to let you put in the plan every year. There is no guarantee, promise, or anything on what's going to come out on the back end. The only promise is what the government will allow us to put in on the front end. Mm-hmm. That's where that risk shifted. So that's why I say a very monumental piece of legislation. So that happened back in '74. The question is, well, we've got 40 years of history, and that's what you were referring to, Brandon. So the question is, well, what happened in the last 40 years? Because what most people did was they opened up an IRA, they made their contributions, and by the way, 401ks I'm putting in the same category. Of course, 401ks weren't really introduced till the early 80s, but we have 40 years of history, and what people did was they put their money in these accounts, and they put it in stocks and mutual funds, and now we can fast forward 40 years and say, well, what happened? And that was the study that I referred to, Brandon, where the Social Security Administration had to commission this study, and they said, you know, if you take 100 people at the start of their working careers during this time period, and you follow them to retirement, what happened to them? Well, the answer is only 5 people, 5 out of 100 people, created any kind of financial security by age 65. Wow. 95% of people failed to do that. And that's why when you and I walk into Walmart, who are the people there greeting us, right? People who should be retired and enjoying retirement but aren't, because what they were told to do didn't work. And so So that's the reality of the retirement dilemma today.
Wow. That is something. Going forward, so we obviously were able to first talk because we were talking about people self-directing their capital into real estate. What type of projects could people self-direct their dollars into? I mean, could they get into partnerships? Could they buy stock? I mean, is there any limitation of things that they can and can't purchase with that?
Yeah, so there are what the government calls prohibited transactions. And so I'll take a step back on that. The reason why are people beginning to jump on the bandwagon and turn to self-directing in larger and larger numbers, every single month. More and more accounts are being opened, more and more assets are being transferred out of the stock market over to a self-directed environment. And the answer is that ultimately what, Brandon, what you want, what I want, and what everybody listening wants and needs, okay? And by the way, you may not think you want this, but I tell you, I promise you, you definitely need it. What is it that we all need? We need consistent, predictable, secure income. That's what we all need at the end of the day, so that when we stop working, right, next month's bills are going to be paid by the income we know is coming in. That's where the stock market and specifically mutual funds have fallen short, because the problem is that they're not designed to be stable and predictable because they're based on the stock market, which goes up and down. They're not designed necessarily to provide a steady stream of income. And so one of the main reasons why people are moving to a self-directed environment is because you can easily achieve those types of benefits in a self-directed IRA environment where you can't in a plain vanilla IRA. So as an example, you mentioned, what are some of the things people can do and what can't they do? Well, the nice thing about it is that a lot of people are not aware that you have so many investment options inside of retirement accounts, because we've been trained and taught and told by traditional financial institutions that really all we can do is mutual funds and stocks and bonds and CDs. It's just simply not true. The IRS rules allow us to do all kinds of things. So we have clients investing in real estate. As an example, if you have a piece of real estate and you have somebody who's renting that real estate, so it's a cash flowing property, right? Every single month that money comes, that rental income gets distributed back to that retirement account. It comes in like clockwork. It's very predictable and it's very consistent. You know what the rents are every single month. You know that the rent's going to be paid between the 1st and the 5th, right? And you know what the dollars are. The tenant can't say, well, I'm going to pay you $400 this month and $600 next month and $300 the month after that, right? It's done by contract. That contract is called a lease. And that lease stipulates this is what you're going to pay for living in this property. And specifically, Brandon, you guys have a very unique and interesting spin, a very important spin on that concept by providing real estate that is of a very specific nature, and I'm not doing a good job of explaining it, but nice homes with on-site care to where people, when they get older and they need some help and support, can live in their own home-like environment with dignity, and that carries with it a higher level of rental income, which makes it even more predictable and more secure. And so these are the kinds of things that can be done when you step into this world. And so can you invest in a property or a venture like that using a self-directed IRA? You absolutely can. The things that the government doesn't allow us to do are just a few simple things that really don't apply to most people anyway. You're not allowed to buy collectibles in your IRA, things like rugs and antique and artwork. You can't buy alcoholic beverages, and you can't buy life insurance. Life insurance is important to have. You should have it. I have it. We just don't buy it in our IRA. And those are the few things that we can't do. So if it's not on a list that the IRS says you can't do this, then we're allowed to draw the conclusion that we can. That's how the rules are written. That's how they work.
Awesome. So we are in a business, as you were bringing up, where we are purchasing homes. We are able to convert them, and then we are able to rent those out on a per bedroom basis to people that that have to have a place to go, but also we are able to set up a 24/7 caregiver that is there in 2 12-hour shifts. And at the pace that we are currently going, they are saying by 2020, our seniors are going to be out of space for them to go. And so we basically have 5 years to do everything we can possible to help these seniors. And the institutional answer isn't what people are really trying to find today. I mean, finding a big home that has 100 to 200 people with a caregiver ratio of 1 to 20, let's face it, it isn't what people want to do. And oftentimes when someone is going through that tough choice of what to do with their parents from how they were able to grow up have a preconceived idea of what a home is going to be, and they don't want to be there. And although things have changed and things have gotten kind of better, but the fact is, if it's a one caregiver to every 20 people in there, sadly, these caregivers are set up to fail. So we had the opportunity down in Florida this past year, and we saw a really cool concept that they are taking single-family homes, converting them to care for the elderly. And in fact, one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting, Edwin, is that in Florida, Florida is the number 4 state in the country that is 4.2 million elderly over the age of 65. So I thought it would be higher than 4, but it's 4. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is for all of those people over 65, there's 4.2 million. There is 3,500 homes that are caring for all of these guys. Now, I probably asked you this, but what percentage do you think a typical person would think of those 3,500 homes are 6 beds or less?
Yeah, so you surprised me with this. You shocked me with this the other day. I said a very small number. I would figure, probably not more than 5 to 10%. Very small is what I thought.
And I thought the same thing too. When I found out that down in Florida that 80% of those homes were 6 beds or less, I was shocked, but that's how they are taking care of the elderly, because that's what the elderly want to have. So what we are doing, and part of the reason that I was able to ask you to help educate people about the benefits of these IRAs, first of all, I think it's incredible info that everyone really, at the end of this, I am going to give you the opportunity to give out your phone number and email. If you want to connect them over with the gentleman from your office, that's fine as well. But I want to give people a resource that they could ask questions to understand how they can quit wasting dollars, because by the time they go to retire, if they don't have anything, I don't want them to have to go and get a job at McDonald's or Walmart over there. I just think it's a total shame. I think if people get what's going on and have the proper info, which I think you do, it will help them exponentially. And 2, we are always looking for partners to help fund these houses. So if we could kind of work together through the platform of the IRA, it would give us a avenue that we could actually pay a very good return compared to stock averages that would be able to help people. The whole concept of doing good first and being able to kind of give back is something that I feel could give the good solid income that people are going to be looking for to help draw off of that. I mean, we have had other partners that we have been able to work with that have earned a very good return that has been able to beat the 5 to 6% average that is earned in a stock market. So all of those are able to differ, but we've got quite a few opportunities that I think if people first understand what they could do with what they currently have, that we could be one of the avenues for them to kind of consider. So is there anything else that I am not smart enough to ask that you think is important for people to know?
Yeah, so one of the questions that people have is well, how does this process work? I hear about self-directing, and I hear you say you can invest in real estate or private stock or private placements or things of that nature. How does that really work? Well, the good news is that it's a simple three-step process. So step number one is that, and by the way, these are all D's, okay? You were taught not to get D's in school, but when it comes to our financial livelihood and our retirement, you want all D's across the board, okay? So the three D's, this is the three-step process: decide, deposit, direct. So the first step is deciding that you want to self-direct your retirement account, deciding that you want to maintain these incredible tax benefits, that you want to make the most of them, that you want to get a return of your investment in addition to a return on your investment, and that you want to grow your account exponentially larger and faster and generate income for the future. So the moment you decide that, then you establish a self-directed IRA account. And when you do that, that process takes all of 5 to 10 minutes. It's very simple. Brandon, you had mentioned, we have folks that will help people do this all online and over the phone. It doesn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes to establish that new self-directed account. Once the account is established, then you need to deposit money in there so that you have money to invest. And depositing money in a retirement account, self-directed retirement account, there's three simple ways to do that. One way is through a contribution, which we already talked about. So if you have earned income, you can take money out of your checking or savings account and deposit it in that self-directed IRA. Second way you can do it is that if you have a previous employer's 401k plan or a 403b or a TSP if you're on the public side, you can roll over that money from that old 401k, previous 401k, into your new self-directed IRA. And then the third way to deposit money inside of an account is to transfer money from another IRA into your new self-directed IRA. So now you have an account open, you've got money in the account, and now the third and final step is to direct. Who are you directing? Well, you're directing your IRA provider, specifically your self-directed IRA provider. And this is the step that makes this a truly self-directed IRA, because it's in this step that you would say to Specialized IRA Services, here's what I want you to do with my money. And so that's the third step in the process. And every one of those steps is simple. We have a staff, and that's what we do. And so every step of the way that you're doing something, the client just simply calls in. They can ask the question. We're going to handhold them and walk them through it every step of the way.
All right, perfect. You were able to bring up a very good point there. Quite a bit of people have a W-2 type of job, and they are going to be rolling over from a prior company. I have a good friend in mind that I have coached his kid playing baseball. He just changed jobs after almost 20 years. And how does that kind of work? Is there any penalties for doing that? Is it kind of a case-by-case basis? Because I think that's a pretty common situation of someone is transferring over. They don't want to take a 30 to 40% penalty by withdrawing it, but what type of options do they have?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is, as long as the movement of money from trustee to trustee, so those are words that we use in our world and that are in the code, so those are important words. The client doesn't necessarily need to know all these words, but we know them, and that's why you hire us. Right. As long as the money goes from trustee to trustee, there are no taxes and there are no penalties. So when money is moved properly, it's tax-free, penalty-free movement. If you have $100,000 in your 401k today, when that money hits your self-directed IRA tomorrow, you're going to have the same $100,000 there. The key is, as I said, it's got to move properly. I never recommend someone who doesn't do this for a living try to transfer or roll over their own retirement accounts. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people accidentally trigger taxes and penalties, and it can all be avoided by simply working through your new IRA provider.
Excellent. I think probably one of the other questions that I'm sure people are able to be thinking is, what is something like this cost? There is 3 separate costs for this, right? Is there some info? Is it kind of on a case-by-case basis, or There was some upfront fees that were $50 to $150 that I think are very fair, and I think there's some different options that you were able to offer. Could you kind of discuss some of those to everybody that is going to be listening?
Yeah, so the nice thing, and another huge benefit to self-directing, is that people will save a significant amount of money on fees. Chances are, if you're watching this video right now and you have money in your 401k plan or you have it in an IRA at your bank or brokerage, you have no idea in actual dollars what you actually paid for your account. And the reason why you don't have any idea is because when you get your quarterly statement or your annual statement, they don't show you the dollars that you paid them. They don't have to.
Tricky.
So they don't provide that information, yes. And so what happens is when you move to a self-directing environment, at least the Specialized IRA Services, we are just big believers that if you're going to pay for a service, you have every right to know what you're paying. So we have a very clear black and white fee schedule. We review it with every client when they're setting up their account. We want to make sure that the client understands it, and we ask them to sign off acknowledging that they understand it. And in fact, we will not open an account unless somebody is fully aware and understands that fee schedule. That's very, very important to us. So back to your question about the specific dollars or the fees that are involved. Well, typically what we see is when somebody moves from a traditional or plain vanilla IRA, okay, so I'll stick with that terminology. When somebody moves from a plain vanilla IRA into a self-direct IRA, people will typically cut their fees in half.
Really?
Sometimes more, but typically 50% is a fairly good number. So the moment you take money away from a plain vanilla IRA, deposit it in a self-direct IRA, you will instantly put dollars in your pockets from the fee savings alone. It is based on the asset value of the account, and so all you have to do is call the office, talk to one of our consultants, and what they'll do is they'll go over how much money you have in your account and how much you're looking to bring over, and then they can go through all those fees and tell you exactly to the dollar what that account would cost you every year.
Awesome. So what could we do special for anyone that is on the phone here today that is able to kind of watch this? What could we do that when they were able to contact you that you would know that it is them, it was them calling in from here? If they said, hey, I heard you talking with Brandon, is there anything that we could do, or is there any way to help kind of track that, that they probably wouldn't call to talk to you directly, but I think you were able to refer Ned?
Yeah.
How would they get in touch with him? Phone, email, smoke signal?
Smoke signals. Well, smoke signals are actually very effective in certain parts of the country, for sure. So what you can do. So here's what we'll do. I'll offer it. Let me give you. I'm going to look it up right now. So I can pull it up. Make sure I'm reading this off correctly for you here in just a second. So what we'll do is, so we have something called a plan design consultation. A plan design is a fancy way of saying, you know, we spend a fair amount of time. We don't take a lot of your time, because we get to the point, but we go over your situation, your goals, your family situation, and what we do is, based on what you want to accomplish, we do these consultations, and then we can custom create a plan for you. We typically charge, depending upon the extensiveness of the work, $97 to $197 to do those consultations. What I'll do is I will offer anyone who watches this video and references this video, we'll go ahead and do those consultations 100% free.
Wow.
So we won't charge the client the $97 to the $197 to do that. And the way you take advantage of that is that you can call. So I'm going to give you the phone number. First of all, I'll give you the website, but I'll give you a contact number as well. So the website is www.specializediraservices, that's services plural with an S on the end, .com. Specializediraservices.com. And the phone number here at the office is 1-800-529-3951. And what you want to do is you want to hit option number 1, and that will take you into those new account consultants. Specifically, you mentioned Ned on our team. Ned is a terrific consultant, terrific team member, extremely knowledgeable, been in the business for a long, long time. So feel free to call in and ask specifically for Ned.
Okay, great. Could you repeat the website portion?
Yeah, it's www.specializediraservices.com.
Awesome. Hey, I thank you for all of your time. This has been an absolute blessing. Thank you for being able to take out time out of your day. So if anyone has any questions, get in touch with him. I'm going to also put all of the contact info right below this video of how to be able to get in touch with them. And in order to take advantage of that free deal, you have to tell them that you saw Brandon and Edwin talking on this video. So that's a $100 to $200 savings. That's huge, guys. And he's only doing that for people on here. So when you could pause this at this point, pick up the phone, call these guys, talk to them, and if there's any questions, they will be able to take good care of you. If anybody is interested in talking further on the senior care opportunities, we've got a summary I could send out. I'll also put the info down below, but you could call us at 224-333-6247, and we'll be happy to get in contact with you. Also, I'll give you our VP of Finance direct email. That's Tim Stewart, and his email is tim@Shepherd, which is SHEPHERD, shepherdresidentialcare.com. Tim's a great guy with over 15 plus years in the business. He can help explain what all those financial overviews are. So get in contact with Edwin if there's any questions. Thank you all for being here. Have a blessed day, and we will talk to you on the other side. Take care. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin.